Hello, good morning and good afternoon. Appreciate your time today. My name is Tommy Lee. I'm the VP of Sales for Fanvil, supporting all of North America. Along with me today is a guest that you'll be hearing very shortly from one of our master distributors, VoIP Supply. His name is Don Stephanie. I'll introduce him a bit, but I want to kind of do a quick overview of a new solution that we're bringing to the marketplace that's capturing quite a bit of attention. It is pretty much a pretty mature technology, but it's something that we've decided to bring out to the marketplace, which really addresses many of the integration problems that we have in the marketplace, which is you can go into many establishments like a hotel, hospitality, and businesses that really want to upgrade their system, but they feel like they don't necessarily want to upgrade their two-wire infrastructure that they have in place. And we've put together basically a network as well as an integrated endpoint solution that kind of puts it all in one piece at a very competitive rate that allows our partners out there to really deploy UC and IP communications throughout the marketplace. So with that stated, some of the things that you might encounter shortly is if you have a question along the way, you don't have to take a jot down. On your screen, you may want to open up a chat box and put in whatever questions that you may have. Both Don and I will be able to screen through some of those questions. It may interrupt me when the time is appropriate so that we can address all the questions that are raised. So with that stated, I will provide a soft copy of this presentation to VoIP Supply, and feel free to reach out to Don for a PDF copy, which I will send to him shortly. So with that stated, based on the cover, here is my contact information for your reference. If you need a copy of this, feel free to go ahead and contact Don, and I'll be more than happy to follow up. So with that stated, I'll move ahead to the next slide. What I'm going to do today is really provide both a Fanvil and VoIP Supply introduction, just to kind of give an overview, because through many of the registrations, there's always a small percentage of people out there that has pretty much heard of VoIP Supply or Fanvil for the very first time. And given that, I'll set aside a slide or two, but, and then once I do that, they understand who we are. I'm going to go over some details about the solution overview, give on how we do a product highlights, meaning how do we differentiate from some of the other competitive solutions that exist, some application, and obviously some of the accessories that'll make your life a lot easier to go ahead and deploy these solutions to the marketplace. So with that stated, I want to go ahead and now introduce one of our master distributors, VoIP Supply. And they've been with us for many years, and they provide lots of kitting as well as storing all of our particular programs. But instead of me taking away Don's thunder, I want to introduce Don Stephanie. I'll pass on the mic to him.
Thank you, Tommy. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. So yeah, again, I want to echo what Tommy said about your valuable time. Really appreciate you joining us today. And I know you signed up through a couple different outlets, through our invites, so you're already probably a partner. And also through invites from Fanvil, so Tommy and his team. So if you're not a partner, I'm going to spend a few minutes telling you why you might want to do business with VoIP Supply to help you bring your Fanvil solutions to your clients. So I'll spend a little time on that today. Stay with us during this. Take away as much as you can. This is going to be informative. I'm just learning this product solution myself. I did a little bit on it last week with our reseller community. So stay with us. And at the end of this, we're gonna do some giveaways. We're gonna randomly pick a couple folks to get one of these solutions to test out. So you're going to get a switch that you're going to need, the PN8 and the X303 two-wire phone. That'll give you a way to test this out and kind of learn the technology and get your hands on it yourself. So with that said, let's talk a little about VoIP Supply and who we are. So if you didn't come through our invite, you probably don't necessarily know that we've been around since 2002. So we've been delivering solutions and hardware and professional services to our clients for 22 years in this space, and well over 100,000 customers serviced worldwide. So we've been doing this for quite a bit. We really focus on this space, the SIP space, the open source world. It's always been our focus, just so you know. We carry over 5,000 products, 60 different vendors. Obviously today focused so much on Fanvil, are probably one of our largest. You definitely are, Tommy, so you know that. Some of the biggest numbers in our company come through Fanvil, as well as the fastest growing partner that we have right now. So it's always a pleasure to get on this call with you and your team. So, and we're more than just a website. we're one of the best places to work in Western New York. A new gent started yesterday, so that's awesome. If you know anybody in the Western New York region that's interested in technology, especially in the communications area, send them our way. And we also have a facility in the back for warehousing the product. So if they want to work in a warehouse and they don't really have an eye on the tech side of it, send them our way. We could use the help around here. And when you're calling into VoIP Supply, you're going to be experiencing some people here that have been in the industry for almost 20 years. Actually, I think a couple of our guys are 20 years. So you're leveraging over 70 years of experience combined on our team. And since you didn't all come from our site, you don't know what our partner program is all about, just give me a few moments here to talk to you about that. When you become a partner at VoIP Supply, you can take advantage of the reseller pricing. So I will encourage you, if you haven't signed up to be official Fanvil partner, there's a form on our site to do that. That way we can get you all set up to get the proper pricing as a reseller so you can sell these products out to your end clients and bring a beautiful solution to them. We also offer financing options, whether it is our device as a service program or whether you need a traditional lease for one of your end clients. We can help you do that as we get the gear out the door for you. And I can't talk enough about our marketing team, the folks that help us bring these type of webinar out to our client base. They have tons of material. We put out content every single week and multiple times per week quite often. So we spend a lot of time trying to bring out what's latest and greatest in the VoIP industry to you every week. We also have a ton of materials for you as well. We do this type of webinar ourselves. We do this with our partners. We will go out to industry shows, tell you about them, latest trends in the industry, all kinds of things that you can do by hitting and taking advantage of our reseller program here. So please do that. Please sign up. And again, I mentioned dedicated sales team with 70 years of experience, but we also have a ton of customer-facing folks in our customer experience team, our engineering team for tech support. We bring that all through you through the partner program. And of course, I talked about how much we ship out every day. I work really closely with our VoIP fulfillment department, which is where we do a lot of touch, a lot of work on the phones. So we do a full cycle logistics. We can send the product out for you. We can just ship a box, no problem. And if anything goes wrong with that shipping, we'll definitely take care of it from end to end and make sure that whatever happened or went wrong, if it did, we fix that for you very quickly and fix that right up same day. Now, this is what I was mentioning a second ago. The fulfillment program is near and dear to my heart. I spend a ton of time with some of our largest partners putting out provisioned and labeled and branded solutions for my partners with their look on those boxes before they leave the building. We make sure everything's registered if you want us to, make test calls, everything you can do to make sure that when it gets there, your end client is having the best possible experience that they can possibly have when they open that box. They open it up and they know exactly where to put the phones. They've all been tested. Everything's good to go in our fulfillment program. So if you're doing stuff on a regular basis and you want to take that lift off of your plate and you want to make it, the product meets your team out at the end client site, please give us a call. We can do that for you. And on the provisioning side, same thing, not as extensive as the fulfillment program. It can be, it's more of a one-off. So if you don't do it all the time and you're only putting out a solution or a phone system out a couple times a month, we can still do that for you. And we can do more than just provision endpoints. Like we're talking about now, we can do full PBXs as well. So if you need something on-prem, and you're putting an actual PBX on site, let us know. There's a little more work involved there, but we can handhold you and get that done and make sure that, again, it arrives all ready to rock and roll. So it's your team the minimum time on a truck roll. And that said, we're going to go back to talk to Tommy about Fanvil and their rise in the industry, and looking forward to seeing a little bit more about the products as well, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction, Don. Welcome, everybody. For a quick introduction of Fanvil, we are a manufacturer, and one of the common threads that we bring to the marketplace is nearly all of our products are basically SIP-based. SIP for those is just really the new IP technology that many of the new UC engines have complied with, and that makes it fully compatible with many different engines that are out there that are providing a UC marketplace. So we're a hardware manufacturer with warehouses and manufacturing facility all located throughout China as well. And we're also sensitive to the fact that there are lots of clients out there who are sensitive to where where parts are manufactured. So we also have a manufacturing base in Vietnam, and we go ahead and manufacture things outside of whatever geographical regions that clients will do. And we'll necessarily manufacture things out of there on a case-by-case basis. Fanvil, as you know, we've been around for quite some time, but one of the things you might see associated with Fanvil is a sub-brand called Linkville. You know, Linkville to Fanvil is sort of like Bronco is to Ford. So very often, you know, people will go ahead and see that. And the reason why we came out with Linkville is that we've come out with a lot of hybrid products that are SIP, but then yet they're sort of an offshoot and sort of concentrating a lot on the wireless technology. And because we're going to expand a lot on our wireless technology, we'll go ahead and brand that Linkville. But that's kind of a heads up on what we kind of do from a manufacturer. Secondly, but not last, is that we've been around for 22 plus years. Most of the things that we've done, we started off really providing many OEM manufacturers. Chances are, if you've been in the IP business for a long time, chances are very good that you've probably touched base with one of our products that we've manufactured, but necessarily put out under a different name. But we're also a big engineering company. About 52% of a lot of our revenue base goes into R&D personnel. So henceforth, that's why we're introducing you today a solution that's going to really allow you to address the two-wire marketplace. Obviously, we've gone ahead and put a lot of things into R&D, where 16% of our annual resources will go into R&D. About greater than half of our personnel is really dedicated to engineering. So we're a very high-tech company. And at the same time, even in high tech, we just recently invested like 1.1 million in looking at investing in an acoustic laboratory, which probably you could find here, because we realize that providing good quality components out there that meet the audio, specifications that people want, we want to make sure that we fulfill everything that we specify that we do. So with that stated, a lot of our engineering comes out. We have over 103 technical patents in what we call the audio video IoT technology. Why do we call it IoT? Really, because we are manufacturing and we build endpoints, it is really where a lot of the audio and video meets the person. A lot of people provide cloud-based solutions, but it's in the server somewhere. They provide all sorts of things, call parking, conference calls, video cameras, but we provide the products where people go ahead and get in touch with, and that's what we've done. So with that stated as an overview, let me provide sort of a quick overview about what we're doing here. You can really divide our product category into 4 separate columns. Our most popular here is the IP phone, of which we're going to talk a little bit about that today. I'm not going to get into details of it, but in the IP phones, we have everything from business phones, hospitality phones, wireless phones, and even phones that are specialized for the retirement base, where for senior living, we've put together some real differentiating factors to really target that market so that we give the endpoint that people feel most comfortable interfacing with our new technology. Beyond that, we also have intercom and broadcasting as well, because with intercom, we develop both indoor as well as outdoor units, as well as being able to broadcast units. Another very popular device that Fanvil brought to the marketplace is our public announcements. And we've come out with products, not only just the speakers itself, which is wall mount and ceiling mountable, but we also have phones that are really specific in controlling that whole entire paging network, where we actually have software that comes right out. These are Android-based phones that you can actually look in, and you can manage a whole broadcasting network just from one interface. And then you get into access control. And what access control is really the ability to be able to control who enters your specific facility, campus, or whatever access control that you want to do, even if it's your own private home. We have units that fit indoors, which is really done by a display. In the olden days, we didn't necessarily have a flat screen display. People used to use phones, and nowadays, people don't necessarily want to see a phone hanging on the wall. Many of our phones, by the way, here actually do that, but when you actually call in, you can have these gate access devices that sit up front, provide video, so that you can display it on a flat screen display here and provide all the inputs and outputs that you need. And here it is, hybrid collaboration. We've gone ahead and put all these things together as what we call the hybrid model. We have a big overview, but that's not the focus of this session today. And the good news is that you can really deploy and manage all of these endpoints on a device management system, which we have in the cloud. This is something that we provide that enables our partners out there to centrally manage access points, phones, intercoms, upgrading software, providing remote access. I mean, I can go down and spend an hour just talking about this, but just to let you know that these things existed. One thing that we're coming out new, by the way, is our cloud management system, because this is meant to really to provide additional expandability for our access control, which we actually develop both an iOS as well as an Android-based mobile application, which will allow you to actually load something on the phone and be able to remotely access people from their pictures, and you can allow someone to access your house, your building, your campus, etc., from your remote phone. And that's going to be done on a separate browser, which, by the way, is hosted here in the States. So we've actually gone ahead and deployed this on an Amazon network so that this is all locally based cloud service so that you feel comfortable about whatever security concerns you have. With that stated, some of the differentiating points that we have for Fanvil as well is we have both local and technical support. I myself is here. I'm based in San Ramon, California, whereas we also have local tech support that's headed by a person by the name of Hector Zarita. You could reach him directly here, or you can contact him via email here. Because we realized as we started growing our brand in the local marketplace, people need a quick tech support, and you can contact somebody that's in real time that can help you out in the field or be able to provide you with additional assistance. So with that stated, let me go through a quick solution overview. So a person may state, hey, what is this two-wire technology? For people that are in the industry, you know, you may know about this so hard, and I'll get into the meat and potatoes of it, but to provide a quick high-level overview, when I grew up, this is what really looked like a two-wire. It was an old analog phone that looked like this, and my whole entire family really shared all communications over a single two-pair wire. And you also had things like intercom and analog cameras, which really dominated the two-wire product line, because the questions that I received today, back in connecting the intercoms and the analog cameras, you connected the yellow wire to the yellow wire, the white wire to the white wire, and you were all done. Nowadays, we've gone up to IP, and you'll notice quickly that many of the IP resellers and manufacturers have gone from all the colored wires into an Ethernet switch. The problem that they face here is that we're in a transition period where not everybody is capable of upgrading their Cat5 or Cat6 to do this conversion from a two-wire. So they say, hey, is there any way we can do that? And which is a resistance in converting the old analog into really a Cat5 or Cat6 Ethernet technology. And I'll talk a little bit about that. So that's really a lot of where we go ahead and provide some of our value-add solutions into the marketplace. We go ahead and save on cost, really providing operational impact while delivering on the same type of Ethernet capabilities across a two-wire network, and I'm going to show you how. So you say, what is a two-wire network? Just to kind of get back into fundamentals, this is really it, two wires. So very often when people move into brand new homes or the old homes, you always saw the RJ11 jack, which kind of looks like this, that fits out of your kitchen, and every home still probably has one as of today, but upgrading into an RJ45 or a network cable, this is something that this upgrade made very difficult. And yet to do this transition, we decided to say, hey, why not go ahead and accommodate for those infrastructures that don't want to do it, which can save cost, so that we can deliver RJ45 performance across an RJ11 interface throughout the building. And I'm going to tell you exactly how we do it. So here's kind of the magic sauce that we do here. Okay, I could spend a little bit of time here, and I'm going to talk to you about it. So for those who actually know about this solution, people classically have internet access. Nearly every business has internet access, which hooks into a router or a network switch. From here, you can access a cloud PBX or an on-prem PBX but it doesn't really matter. And so from the network switch, you either have a GIGI switch or an old 10100 switches. They could be PoE, non-PoE, etc. But they will tend to drive, a building. And this is typically in a closet downstairs in the basement. But in a two-wire building, most of this is sort of built up in a rat's nest of really two wires. And what you can do from a network switch is feed one of these ports on the back of our PN24, PN8, or even a PN1. And I'm going to go ahead and talk about where these items fit into the marketplace. And these things typically fit in right before what they call the 66 block. You know, for people who are into telecom, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But it's usually the wire rat nest that all the wires come converging into one spot. And what you can do from there is, from the network switches, feed the internet onto this PN24, and this PN24 will really convert the Ethernet onto really a two-wire switch. And what this two-wire switch is, all these RJ11 jacks will then hook into it. I'm going to talk a little bit about accessories that make that interface a little bit easier, but we have something for 24 and as well as a PN8, given the type of implementation you have. We also realize the fact that people may have a one-off because a person may want to access just one access point, and what you want to do there is, but likely that access point is probably replacing a two-wire switch. You can use those two wires by accessing using our PN1, one at the basement where you actually have it to really power it up, and it'll provide enough power to really a slave CPE that will provide an Ethernet port that will supply power onto either one of our access points, or quite frankly, any other typical IP device that you want to pair up. So we have a singular one that'll work on one-offs, but then when you want to work together as a switch, what we've done is we've actually incorporated the CPE, this particular switch, internal to one of our phones. And one of the things that we're not showing here is the X303 is really what we call a baseline phone. It has good capabilities while at the same time being able to provide nearly almost everything that most businesses want across an 8-wire or an 8-wire without having an additional CPE. So you can go and hook this thing directly into the RJ11 jack that's hanging off the wall and be able to hook right in, so it kind of looks like the old analog interface, when in actuality, it brings in Ethernet types of standards, and I'll show you what those differentiators are. You might have an offshoot, like showing what this thing is, and you may not need to occupy, but you can power one of these PN1s and provide power, and this will actually provide power across the two-wire and be able to provide that interface onto a one-off. And I'll tell you what some of the different one-offs are in a later slide. Here are the different types of things in the old PSTN network. This is what I talked about, where you had this exchange, where you had many different two-wire products depicted by this red wire analog and green as the network. Very often, this is the exit setup for the analog, but many people have this hard setup going from here onto here because it's going to require rerouting and rewiring. That may be part of the business of many partners. If you can do that, fantastic. But there are many businesses that don't necessarily want to have that upgrade, and you need to work with the two-wire solution. And now with that case, if you can't make this jump with the PoE switch going directly to IP phones, you could then go to basically with option 3. And what option 3 does, as was shown before, you can have this network switch feed in one port onto, say, a PN21 switch, and then have that switch leverage into the 66 blocks, which then distributes those Ethernet signals across two-wire, and have it work with one of our phones that have the CPE unit on this port integrated within the phone. So you end up having this clean integration within the room, so you don't have to have an additional point that people, or guests for that matter, in the hospitality unit may get confused. And I'm glad I actually mentioned hospitality, because besides the X303, we actually have an H1-2. And I'll show what that looks like on a later slide, because not only are we doing for business, we actually have a hospitality phone that has the same network switch put into it as well. Coming on and showing the comparisons, I'm not going to go over every single module here. This is for your future reference, but I want to show the different options. Why does one want to put Ethernet, capabilities onto it? Because a lot of enterprises, a lot of small businesses like to have call parking, call transfers that are really a subset of SIP. And without it, what many people do when they stick with the straight analog interface is stay with the DTMF tones, because those that are old enough will realize that to do voicemail, you had to call up the access, you had to dial in specific codes, put in the forwarding number, whereas when you work with SIP and a lot of these cloud manufacturers, you can go ahead and program all of these advanced technologies and have it work over the option 3, so that many of the capabilities that only existed on analog will now reappear using our technology. One note that I want to mention is that there are also lots of other competitive technologies, and that everything that we do on our phone is optimized to our unit. So even though there are many other units that you can provide that provide Ethernet over 2-wire, these phones are really directly made to communicate with our PN1 switches or our PN8 or 24 switches put in. So they're not necessarily cross-compatible. Now we'll go into a little bit of the solutions. And in the solutions, let me talk about the switches, okay? And in the switches, these are items where you can have either an 8-port switch. You might walk into a small business that just has a handful of phones. And this is a situation where in the back, you might see a power that provides power into it, the cable. And as well, you could feed in the WAN. This is typically where you would feed the internet feed from your internet provider into here, and it will actually provide that 1-port signal across 8 to 24 different ports. So we have a RJ21 interface with all of these ports put into one, and this will be good enough to go ahead and power either the 303 business phone or the H1 hospitality phone that we've put together, and to go ahead and build this. And this, you know, how much meters does it go? This has about 300 meters. Would you consider 3 feet per meter? This can go about like practically 3 football fields together when you kind of put together terms of lengthwise, but it should accommodate most SMBs that are out there in the marketplace, okay? Then we have the PN1. You know, this is going to be a very flexible device because it'll allow you to go ahead and deploy, you know, those one-offs where it could be an access point, it could be an intercom, it could be a lot of those things that you just need one port, and you could put this 2-wire interface onto here and be able to provide Ethernet access on the endpoint to be able to go ahead and deliver these things. So you have all of these pieces that'll go across a 2-net, and that you can go ahead and put these pieces together, and I'll put together a case study that will provide that. And this is available, and it could support the same amount of meters as well with 300 meters. What are some of the things that you can do with the one-on-one is you can do things like IP advertising. You could hook up an IP speaker across a 2-wire. You might have an old analog speaker that was driven by 2-wire. Now you can go ahead and convert that to go in IP speakers, horns, IP telephones. Now you can go ahead and expand this interface using the PN1 to provide as a one-off to go ahead and do these things. And, you know, Don will describe this thing a little bit and actually has some demo programs which you may be interested when you reach out to him. Let's go and look at the 303 wire. When I say that this is a baseline, it really provides good capabilities in terms of having color display, not only color display, but we have 4 SIP lines to support HD audio as well. It comes with a color screen and be able to directly communicate to our PN8 as well as PN24. It's wall mountable, and you can actually conference in 6-way audio conferencings onto SIP. That's not something that you can do on an analog interface, you know, where you would have to put in many, many different DTMF tones on the phone, which makes it really unuser friendly. You can go ahead and operate this as though you have a high-end UC connection, and you can operate the phone as you see fit. I mentioned about the H1 series because we realize that there are a lot of hospitality environments out there that stay with the 2-wire. And as opposed to keeping a 2-wire using the ATA and maintaining the ATA interface, for those who want more functionality, you can go ahead and use our H1 2-wire that has the CPE located within the phone. And again, you can work with VoIP Supply as well as us to put together a customized phone interface where you can have people like the Marriotts, the Best Westerns, all these different logos appear on the hotel phone with customizable buttons where you can customize to wherever you want, having the local address, phone numbers, etc., what you would find in many different hotels. And just here's a quick list. I'm not going to go mount them all, but it contains all the different, you know, items that people will want to go ahead and see on a hotel and phone environment. So application scenarios. I'll talk about one. Again, this is something in a business and hospital. This sort of provides a whole back end where you can kind of put in a network switch that feeds a bunch of PN1s. Now, in the PN1s, you can be very flexible and not have voice communication. You can use this to really connect IP cameras. We don't do cameras, but it can work very well with third-party cameras, our access points, or perhaps any other third IP device, Or in this case, when there's no Wi-Fi available, you can work with some of our hospitality intercoms and provide interfaces onto that across a 2-wire atmosphere. This really enables you to sort of use this and use it as the bridge to really connect these environments over a 2-wire switch, whereas when you use an ATA, it's just the opposite. You actually have a person with IP connections at the wall, but then you want to convert it down to analog because they don't necessarily want to upgrade on their endpoints to do IP. You know, that's a cost savings at that point, but we just do the opposite where we'll go ahead and convert the analog interface.
Hey,
Another
Tommy.
option,
Hey,
yes,
Tommy. While we're
yes,
going to give you a little break for your voice, I just want to ask you a couple of questions that have come through already about the
sure,
X303, about white labeling it. You know, it's your popular program for white labeling those neutral branded phones we've done over the years. We have one question about
yes.
white labeling the 303.
Yes. If you want to white label the X303-2, quite frankly, we're in the OEM business. And so, yes, the only difference between offering one or twosies is that white labeling will require a little bit of minimum quantities because we have to build in production. We are a manufacturer. We'll be more than happy to hear your case if you're interested in white labeling, not only just the business phone, but we also have hotel phones that we white label all the time for that. And if you're interested in doing the 303, as well as even our IP-based phones, we can white label anything as long as you meet the minimum requirements, and that changes on a case-by-case basis. So the answer is
Sure.
yes, we could definitely do a white labeling.
Cool. While we're on this slide too, and we've got the diagram up talking about the PN1, whether it actually passes the PoE power as well.
Yes, it does.
Mhm.
In fact, what we recommend, we do it one-on-one because most PoE devices varies in terms of power requirements. And we recommend for the most stable environment using the PN1 because at that point we can actually put in a power supply at the baseline here. And then that will be good enough to drive for basically most single PN1 switches. We come into a really difficult scenario when you want to put in a multi-port, and different phones, different endpoints have different power requirements, and that you can get into a mess. But the most stable environment, it's not saying that it can't do it depending on what the number is, but I want to quote stability, and the stability is doing that with the PN1 is far more stable than accessing, multiple different, units while doing that, because you might have an endpoint that consumes twice as much PoE power than does the low-end 303, and yet you might end up having a drain and you're wondering where the thing is coming from. So that's my recommendation how we're moving forward. If you have a phone deployment, I highly suggest you use our 303 or our H1 2-wire.
Awesome. So that makes sense one-to-one for those sticky situations. And then how about the data speed that goes over the PN1?
Yeah, the data speeds, quite frankly, you could look at the data speeds. It's good enough to really transmit. We kind of look at the data speed as a 10-100 because when you hook the network switch, we're feeding off a single, possibly a 10-100 or a GigE port. And that port will end up being divided into 24 ports, 8 ports, or multiple 24 ports. And we don't know how that's going to be divided depending on what does anything. So the easy way to divide it is look at it as a 10-100, which is really good enough to transmit audio. This is not made to provide GigE access to several different locations, but it will provide internet access and gives you enough internet interface to support audio, and in some cases, some video as well that handles within a 10-100 port.
All right, so I will. I'm going to defer these questions for a little bit, so keep you on track. But there's a couple more coming in, and I'll get those to you in a little while.
Problem. No problem. I'll move on to just the Villa as well. You may have just a one-off. Very often we get a lot of requests in deploying our broadcast solutions. And here's a simple case where you want to have an access point going into a Villa where you may want to have 2 wires. Many of the 2 wires already exist in accessing a door phone, a doorbell, and you can upgrade it onto this type of access where indoors you have an indoor station, which gives you that interface onto many homes. Many new homes actually have Cat 5 and Cat 6 cables already put it. But if you happen to have a legacy home like I do that has 2 wires deployed, well, you can actually use this technology to take advantage of that and being able to do that as well. Another case here is the elevator. You know, nobody wants to sit on top of an elevator and upgrade those wires. And you can use those 2 wires in a case where you can have the PN1 and use the existing 2-wire interface that goes up and down the elevator, and you could put an intercom with a camera or advertising panel that might exist within the elevator that will provide that level of interface for you. So these are just small amount of cases that will give you that type of flexibility that will give you, you know, the ability to cross that barrier for today. Now, some of the accessories that I have is, you know, you notice that many of the different port interfaces are RJ11s, and some of the things I found in the third-party marketplace is when you interface to a 66 block, which is most blockades come in on the nest, they'll have this gate or RJ21 connector, of which if you decide to use multiple ports, you can really plug this right into the, you know, PN8, PN24 port and hook it directly onto the connector of the 66 block, so you're not individually splicing wires. We don't necessarily have that for the PN1, but then yet, you know, for a single operation, it may not be a big deal, but if you have those ports, this is one of those nice things that you do. We haven't necessarily certified a wire yet, but these are third-party available where you can access RJ11 cables to provide that interface going through it. Now, with that stated, one last slide that I want to put out is that we have an NFR program, and this is something that VoIP Supply is very familiar with. You can go ahead and provide bundles of this thing for people that want to go ahead and test drive. You can provide bundle 1, which has a PN1, a bundle 1 and 8. This is something that VoIP Supply will be giving away shortly near the end of this webinar, or you can do a 303 with 24, or have a 2-wire pair as well, and compare it with any Fanvil IP device or whatever atmosphere you want to go ahead and do it. And that's something that we'll have in place through the end of March of next year, which is something that we use to go ahead and test drive our solutions. So that's our last slide, and I'll go ahead and pass the floor back on to Don at this point.
That's awesome. I love it. So, and actually, I'm glad I let you get through those last few. You did answer, I think, one of the questions that came up about the elevator button. So that came up. It looks, yeah, since that power is coming over those wires, it looks to me like that's a yes on that solution. That was great. The next slide was that. So good timing on the stop there. And then some other questions have come up already about the the PN1 to PN1, the maximum data speed over that environment.
Yeah, the maximum data speed is, it will vary, only because the way I would look at that PN1 interface is I would look at the Ethernet port here as a 10100 port. So really, if it's dedicated one-on-one, because keep in mind that this one port, what feeds this PN1 is another switch in the back. So depending on what type of interface, you might hook this onto a 10100 port that's also shared amongst many others within your facility. If you hook it into a Gig E switch, this will bring the Gig E down to a PN1, which is only a 10100. It'll only go slow. But again, when you hook this onto a Cat5 PoE switch, then you're feeding off of one port. So I would look at this port interface as nothing more than a 10100 port switch. And what I would suggest, if you have an interface with a camera, you can really just do an NFR of a PN1 to PN1 and see if whether or not that works with your specific thing. Because this is really designed to really communicate with audio, which is really only 100K bits per second, coupled with perhaps H.264 video codec, which is the video. And both of those can really fit within that bandwidth of any 10100 port that's out there and available.
That's pretty awesome. So at 300 meters, it'll still be maybe supporting that 100 megabit. It'll actually go.
Correct. That's what we're specifying that for. Correct.
That's awesome.
That's assuming, of course, that the copper wire is still good. I mean, many times.
Well, yeah, there's that.
Mixed and facts, and assuming that the copper wire is fine, then it should work well.
And speaking of wires for in PA environments, a lot of times there's a larger gauge, like an 18 gauge wire, rather than the classic RJ11. Is there an issue with working with those switches with that? Is that something that can be done?
No, very often when I showed on the very early slides, I showed a Cat5, but I also on the other end, there are many large CADs, and you can justify 2 wires within a group pair as well, that you can do that. Because sometimes the wires come in a group, and you could just solicit 2 of the colors. Typically, when you have a group wire, they're all different colors, and you can pick out 2 of those colors to really mimic that 2-wire environment to whatever destination you want to go.
And actually, I had a question about whether you can use the 8 PN1 behind a single PN8 to use any IP endpoint. That's a question that came up, and I think that's probably a yes.
Yeah, when you use a PN1 and you want to do a one-off, I mean, I think in that case, it depends on what the load is on the non-PN1 switches, right? Because if that PN1 is driving 7, say, X303s, we're not necessarily sure on what the load is and whether or not that one can actually provide enough power to go ahead and power that. So, I would have to look at whatever scenario you might have, because then when you're providing power, this was not meant to be, in essence, a power unit. It was meant to really go over a 2-wire switch. But the most stable one is using the PN1 to PN1 if you have that. But if you have a low load, I would suggest going into your lab and trying it out and see if it works. And then from there, you can go ahead and implement it. You might have 5 ports out of that PN8, and you may only be using 2. In that case, it's more of a conservative estimate that it might likely work. But then yet, when you're having all 7 occupied and powering many other devices, then you're going, what's left over, depending on what you have. So we spec'd it out power-wise to really accommodate our endpoints. And anything above and beyond that endpoints, things become a little bit more unstable, because you might hook in an access control point which consumes 2 if not 3 times the power. Now all of a sudden you're exceeding it. So it really depends on the endpoint you put in.
Right, that's actually, I think, where that question was really headed. So I've got a bunch of 2-wire product downrange, that's yours, and then all of a sudden I'm going to introduce an IP endpoint at the other side, and at that side I'm going to put that PN1, but I'm really driving that whole thing with a PN8. So that was kind of where that question involved. But I think you answered that there.
Yeah, the PN1 really mimics the 1 port. And the idea behind the power on those switches is that they were really designed to work with fully loaded, H1-2 or X303-2. Having fully loaded, there should be no issues whatsoever. Once you introduce any other product that has a higher power requirement, now all of a sudden things become above and beyond what we specified it for, and I can't necessarily dictate the stability behind that. It may work if all of a sudden most of the ports on the switch aren't used for anything more than that, but again, I think it depends on the application scenario.
Right, and then there's a note in here too about whether the X303 2-wire is it only, and does it also have an RJ45 connection to do a PoE connection to that phone if needed? If you end up buying 20 of them, all of a sudden you're like, hey.
I think, I don't know off the top of my head.
I don't know that answer either.
Yeah, I would have to take a look at. You might be able to look at the X303 on our website. I mean, there's a data sheet that will show you what the interface ports are. Because this is relatively new, I don't necessarily have that particular data, but the data sheets are openly available on our website, and you can see whether or not there is like a little bit of a Ethernet bridge that will allow you to get a little bit of Ethernet through that.
Yeah, that's funny. I never even looked to see if there was another port on there for it to be able to do that. So
yeah,
we'll have to get you that answer. I'll try to get one that after the fact, and obviously we'll throw my contact info up here again. We'll do that so we can get those questions answered.
Absolutely. In fact, with that stated, I'll go ahead and switch over to this, which actually has your contact info.
There you go.
Okay. Any other questions you might have?
I'm trying to see if I have any other ones that I haven't answered. Some pricing on the equipment, MSRPs for the equipment. We have that on our site. I can't rattle that right off to you, but we'll get you that. It's actually already posted on VoIP Supply's website, so that's all up there already.
Yep. As a manufacturer, we don't quote. We don't quote our partners. We work through our distributors, and VoIP Supply is one of them.
Yeah, the phone itself, for example, the 2-wire phone is a $79 MSRP. So just to give you an idea of the endpoint MSRP costs, and if you're a Fanvil partner, you'll kind of know where that is in relative terms to what you're doing with Fanvil pricing as a reseller today. And I can get you that after the fact as well. Get you signed up as a reseller for Fanvil and get you that pricing. So, and then where else am I see here? MSRP, pricing for the bundles that also is on the site. I'd have to look those up. We have a few, and those are really NFR bundles designed to get those out there for testing. But then beyond that, your regular pricing. Plus, we we do all the Fanvil programs as well. So as you get larger deployments, if you need to do deal registrations, etc., we have all those promotions available to you as well as a Fanvil partner through VoIP Supply's partner program.
Correct.
Let's see what here. Did the upstream port support a VLAN? Now we're getting to the nitty gritties. I like it.
Yeah, VLAN. Yeah, that's an unknown to me.
Now you're talking to some sales guys here. So let me.
Yeah, that would be more of a Hector question. I could probably submit that, but I personally haven't tested it out. I tend to be a closet geek myself, but I haven't necessarily done that yet. So
I love that. But I will go look through these questions here too, and make sure that at the end of the day we can get you some better answers. So.
Yep. Okay.
I think that's really about it. And I will keep on here in this to take a peek at all these questions that came over and make sure that we're going to get them all answered for you. Anything that hasn't been so far. And please reach out to me. I'm really easy to find. I'm the only Don at VoIP Supply. So just get me on the phone. I'll happy to answer anything that we kind of glossed over too quickly or we didn't have all the answers.
That's right. And the same invite, and the same invite goes for me as well. My contact information's here. I'm going to pass Don a soft copy of this presentation. So if you want it, just reach out to him. He'll pass on the PDF version of this.
And that'll probably rattle up the questions that if we didn't answer them, you remember, oh yeah, when I was looking at this, I forgot to ask. So I really appreciate that.
Yep.
All right.
Well, with that said, thank you very much for your time, Don. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We'll be here to help you, and good luck out there. Stay healthy.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Tommy, for everything today, and looking forward to getting the solution out to everybody. And everybody who spent their time here, thank you so much. We'll be sending out a couple emails at the end of this to the folks. Everyone stayed to the end, so obviously, as I knew this would be, the content here is excellent. It's a solution everyone's been kind of looking for. So good stuff. And yeah, and we did get the answer about no Ethernet port on the X303-2, the 2-wire version. So that did come across. Thanks for looking that up, folks. Appreciate that. And with that, I'm going to wrap it up here, and we're going to call it a day. And again, if you have any other questions following this, please give me a shout. Thanks again, everybody. Have a fantastic day.
Thank you.